The wine glass shattered against the marble floor. Every conversation at the dinner party stopped dead. My mother's smug smile vanished the second I stood up and announced, "You want to know why I'm such a disappointment? Why I never became the doctor you wanted? Well, here's something that might interest you. I've been anonymously funding your entire lifestyle for 3 years. Every mortgage payment, every luxury vacation, every designer dress you're wearing right now. The failure you've been publicly humiliating just bought you everything you love." The room held its breath, but that was just the beginning of what she was about to discover. Before we dive into this story of calculated revenge, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you enjoy these real-life drama stories. And tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? We love hearing from our viewers around the world. Maya had always been the family disappointment. At least, that's what her mother told everyone who would listen. While her siblings became doctors, lawyers, and engineers, Maya was branded the lazy one, the dreamer, the girl who couldn't stick to anything. Every family gathering became a public execution where her mother would announce Maya's latest failure to relatives, neighbors, anyone within earshot. She dropped out of medical school, wasted all that money. Now she just sits around doing nothing productive. Her mother's voice would drip with disgust whenever Maya's name came up. The truth was more complicated. Maya had left medical school, yes, but not because she was lazy. She discovered something that made her sick to her stomach, the realization that she was only there because her mother had bullied her into it, not because it was her passion. While her family celebrated her siblings' achievements at expensive restaurants Maya couldn't afford to attend, she was working 16-hour days, building something, creating something, learning skills that her mother dismissed as playing around on the computer. Her mother had no idea that Maya's computer games were actually complex investment strategies, that her meaningless projects were generating serious income, that the daughter she called worthless was quietly becoming everything she'd never expected. Maya let her think it, let her spread the gossip, let her paint the picture of the family failure. Because Maya was building something much bigger than her mother's narrow definition of success, and she was about to prove it in the most devastating way possible. The annual family reunion dinner was always held at Maya's childhood home. 43 relatives packed into the dining room, expensive catering spread across the mahogany table that Maya's mother loved to show off. This year was supposed to celebrate her parents' 35th wedding anniversary, but Maya knew it would become another public showcase of her alleged failures. She walked in wearing a simple black dress, while her siblings arrived in designer suits and luxury cars. The contrast was intentional on her mother's part. Maya had learned to expect it. "Oh, look, Maya finally decided to join us," her mother announced loudly as Maya entered the dining room. "I was starting to think you were too busy with your, what do you call it again? Your little computer hobby." Laughter rippled through the room. Maya's Aunt Patricia leaned over to her cousin. "Still no real job, I heard." Maya smiled politely and took her seat at the far end of the table, the seat her mother always reserved for her, away from the important conversations, away from the successful family members. Her brother Marcus was holding court near their mother, discussing his latest promotion at the law firm. "We just closed a $2 million merger," he was saying, his voice carrying deliberately across the room. "The partners are already talking about making me senior associate. Now that's what I call success," their mother declared, raising her wine glass. Marcus has always been the responsible one, the achiever, the one who makes his family proud. Maya cut into her salmon and said nothing. Her sister Jennifer chimed in from across the table. "My practice has been booming too. We're expanding to 3 new locations this year. I'm thinking about buying that house in the hills we looked at." "Wonderful." Their mother clapped her hands together. 2 successful children. 2 children who made something of themselves. 2 children who understand what hard work means. The silence that followed was deafening. Every eye in the room turned to Maya. She could feel the weight of 42 stares boring into her. She took another bite of salmon and reached for her water glass. And then there's Maya, her mother continued, her voice dropping to that particular tone Maya knew so well. The tone that meant the real show was about to begin. Still living in that tiny apartment. Still playing around on her computer all day. Still waiting for life to just happen to her. Uncle Robert cleared his throat uncomfortably. Cousin Lisa looked down at her plate. But Maya's mother wasn't finished. You know, Maya, your father and I were just discussing this yesterday. You're 32 years old. When are you going to get serious about your life? When are you going to contribute something meaningful to this family? Maya set down her fork slowly. She could feel her heart pounding, but her face remained perfectly calm. I'm doing fine, Mom. Fine. Her mother's voice pitched higher. Sweetheart, fine doesn't pay bills. Fine doesn't build a career. Fine doesn't give your parents grandchildren they can be proud of. Look around this table. Look at what real success looks like. She gestured dramatically at Marcus and Jennifer. Your siblings understand responsibility. They understand what it means to make their family proud. They don't spend their days playing video games and pretending to be entrepreneurs. More nervous laughter from the relatives. Maya's grandmother reached over and patted her hand sympathetically, but even that felt condescending. I mean, honestly, Maya, her mother continued, her voice now carrying across the entire room, at what point do you plan to grow up? At what point do you plan to stop being such a disappointment? Maya lifted her napkin and dabbed at her lips. She looked around the table at all these people, people who had watched her mother tear her down for years, people who had never once asked about her actual life, people who assumed they knew her story based on her mother's version of events. She could fight back. She could defend herself. She could explain what she'd really been doing for the past 5 years. Instead, she smiled, because Maya knew something that nobody else in this room knew. Something that would change everything. Something that would make this humiliation feel like a gentle breeze compared to the hurricane that was about to hit. You're right, Mom, Maya said quietly, her voice barely audible above the clinking of silverware. I probably should take responsibility for more things. Her mother looked triumphant. The relatives nodded approvingly. Marcus smirked into his wine glass. None of them noticed the strange glint in Maya's eyes. None of them caught the subtle emphasis she'd placed on that word more. Maya reached for her purse and pulled out her phone. The moment had finally arrived. Maya scrolled through her phone while her mother continued her victory lap around the dining room. But something strange started happening as the conversation moved forward. Small details began to catch people's attention. Details that didn't quite add up. This house is absolutely gorgeous, Helen, Maya's Aunt Patricia was saying, running her fingers along the expensive wallpaper. The renovations you did last year must have cost a fortune. That kitchen renovation alone looked like it was at least $60,000. Maya's mother preened under the attention. Oh, you know how it is. When you work hard and make smart financial decisions, these things become possible. Not everyone understands the value of planning ahead. She shot a pointed look at Maya, who was still staring at her phone screen with that same mysterious smile. Uncle Robert joined the conversation, admiring the crystal chandelier hanging above the table. And this lighting fixture, this is baccarat crystal, isn't it? Helen, you've really outdone yourself. This whole house feels like something out of a magazine. Thank you, Robert. We've always believed in investing in quality. It's about having standards, having goals, having the discipline to achieve them. Another pointed glance at Maya, but then Maya's cousin David, who worked in real estate, frowned slightly as he looked around the room. Helen, can I ask, what's the market value on this place now? With all the upgrades, the location, the size, you're probably sitting on close to $2 million worth of real estate. Maya's mother waved her hand dismissively. Oh, I don't worry about those details. Money has a way of working itself out when you make responsible choices. But the mortgage payments alone, Patricia pressed, on a house this size in this neighborhood, That's got to be at least $8,000 a month. Plus insurance, property taxes, maintenance. Like I said, Maya's mother replied, her voice getting slightly sharper, when you plan properly, these things take care of themselves. Maya looked up from her phone for the first time in 10 minutes. She watched her mother deflect the questions with growing interest. Marcus jumped in to support his mother. Mom and Dad have always been smart with money. They taught us the value of hard work and financial responsibility. But David wasn't satisfied. He'd been in real estate too long to let vague answers slide. I'm just curious about the logistics. Helen, are you still working? Because maintaining this lifestyle would require a pretty substantial income stream. I retired 2 years ago, Maya's mother said curtly. And your husband? He's been retired for 4 years. A strange silence fell over the table. Maya could see the gears turning in people's minds. Uncle Robert set down his wine glass and looked confused. So, forgive me for asking, but how exactly are you managing the payments on all this? The house, the cars in the driveway. Helen, that's a brand new Mercedes in your garage, isn't it? Maya's mother's cheeks flushed slightly. We have investments. Savings. We planned ahead, but investments don't usually cover $8,000 a month in housing costs, plus car payments, plus the lifestyle you're maintaining, David persisted. That would require serious ongoing income or an absolutely massive nest egg. Jennifer tried to help her mother. Maybe we shouldn't be asking such personal financial questions. But Patricia was curious now, too. Helen, I'm not trying to be nosy, but you just finished telling us about that European cruise you took last month. And didn't you mention you're planning a trip to Japan next year? Those aren't exactly retirement budget vacations. Maya's mother was looking increasingly uncomfortable. She kept glancing around the table, searching for a way to change the subject. I don't see why this matters. We're comfortable. We're secure. That's what good planning achieves. But Mom, Marcus said slowly, now that I think about it, when I was going through that tough patch last year and asked for help with my student loans, you said money was tight. But then 2 weeks later, you bought that new car. Maya's mother's face went pale. Lisa, Maya's younger cousin, looked around the table with growing confusion. Wait, I'm sorry, but I'm not understanding something. Helen, you just spent 15 minutes telling us how Maya is financially irresponsible and unsuccessful. But Maya, didn't you pay for dinner the last 3 times we all went out together? The question hung in the air like smoke. And Maya, Patricia added slowly, wasn't it you who sent flowers to Grandma's funeral? The expensive arrangement from that high-end florist? And the gift basket you sent when I had my baby, Lisa continued, her voice getting quieter. That was a $500 basket from that boutique store downtown. All eyes turned to Maya. She was still holding her phone, still wearing that enigmatic smile. But now everyone was looking at her with different eyes. Calculating eyes. Curious eyes. Maya's mother tried to regain control of the conversation. Those are just... Maya occasionally helps out with small things. It doesn't mean... Small things? Robert interrupted. Helen, I was there when Maya paid your entire emergency room bill last winter. That was $8,000. She paid it on the spot, no questions asked. The silence that followed was thunderous. Maya finally looked up from her phone and met her mother's eyes across the table. Her mother's face had gone from pink to white to a sickly green shade. Maya, her mother whispered, don't. But Maya wasn't going to stay quiet anymore. She'd let the charade go on long enough. She'd let her mother humiliate her, dismiss her, and paint her as a failure while living off her success. Tonight, the truth was coming out. Maya placed her phone face down on the table and folded her hands in her lap. Actually, Mom, she said quietly, her voice carrying clearly across the silent room, I think it's time we talked about responsibility. Real responsibility. The kind that pays mortgage payments. The kind that covers car insurance. The kind that funds European cruises and kitchen renovations and crystal chandeliers. Her mother's wine glass started trembling in her hand. Because you're right about one thing. Someone in this family has been very irresponsible. Someone has been living far beyond their means, spending money they don't have, and letting someone else foot the bill while publicly humiliating their benefactor. Maya stood up slowly, her chair scraping against the hardwood floor. The question is, do you want to tell them, or should I? Maya picked up her phone and opened her banking app. The screen illuminated her face as 42 family members held their breath. Her mother sat frozen, knowing exactly what was coming but powerless to stop it. Since you asked about responsibility, Mom, let me show everyone what that actually looks like. Maya's voice was steady, almost conversational. This is my Chase account, the one you don't know exists. She turned the phone toward the table so everyone could see the screen. Transaction after transaction scrolled down in an endless list of outgoing payments. March 15th. Mortgage payment to First National Bank. $4,200. March 20th. Mercedes-Benz payment. $850. March 22nd. Pacific Gas and Electric. $234. Maya's finger traced down the screen as she read each entry aloud. Her mother's face had turned ashen. Maya, please don't. April 3rd. Home insurance premium. $1,600. April 8th. Property taxes. $3,400. Maya kept reading, her voice never wavering. April 15th. Visa payment for Mom's credit card. $2,100. Uncle Robert's mouth fell open. Cousin Lisa grabbed Patricia's arm. Marcus stared at the phone screen like he was witnessing a car accident. Should I keep going? Maya asked, looking directly at her mother. Because I've got 3 years of this. Every single month. Every single bill. She swiped to another screen. Oh, here's a fun one. Remember that kitchen renovation you were just bragging about? The one that supposedly showed your excellent financial planning? Maya held up the phone again. $78,400. Paid in 6 installments over 4 months. All from my account. Jennifer's face had gone pale. Maya, are you saying? I'm saying that every single thing our mother has used to prove her superiority over me, her house, her car, her lifestyle, her ability to host fancy dinner parties, has been funded entirely by the daughter she calls a failure. Maya walked slowly around the table, her phone in hand, stopping behind her mother's chair. The crystal chandelier you complimented, Patricia? $12,000. I bought it for Mom's birthday last year. The Baccarat crystal, Robert? Another $4,000. Christmas gift from her disappointment daughter. Her mother was trembling now, staring down at her plate. Maya, that's enough. No, Mom. It's not nearly enough. Maya's voice hardened. Because you didn't just take my money. You took my money and used it to humiliate me. You used my success to fund your image while telling everyone I was worthless. She swiped to another screen on her phone. Here's the payment for this dinner tonight. The catering bill. $1,800. Charged to my American Express card this morning. Maya looked around the table at the shocked faces. She's literally using my money to throw a party where she can publicly call me a loser. The silence was deafening. Someone's fork clattered against their plate. But wait, there's more, Maya continued, her voice taking on a sardonic tone. Remember that European cruise Mom was bragging about? The one that proved she was so financially responsible? She held up her phone again. $15,400. Royal Caribbean. 2 passengers. Charged to Maya Patterson's credit card. Her father finally spoke up, his voice barely a whisper. Maya, we were going to pay you back. With what money, Dad? Maya's voice cut through the air like a blade. You've been retired for 4 years. Mom's been retired for 2. You have no income, no business, no investments generating this kind of cash flow. The only money coming into this household is mine. She walked back to her seat but remained standing. And here's the truly beautiful part. While I've been paying for literally everything in your lives, you've been telling everyone who will listen that I'm irresponsible, that I'm a failure, that I don't contribute anything meaningful. Maya's mother finally looked up, tears streaming down her face. Honey, I never meant. You never meant what, Mom? To humiliate me? To lie to our entire family about who I really am? To take credit for a lifestyle you could never afford while painting me as a disappointment? She opened another app on her phone. This is my investment portfolio. The one you call playing around on the computer. Current value, $4.7 million. Monthly income from dividends and trading, averaging $43,000. The gasps around the table were audible. Marcus dropped his wine glass. It shattered against his plate. The tech company I founded 3 years ago, the one you called a meaningless hobby, we just got acquired by Microsoft for $18 million. My cut after taxes and investor payouts, $12 million. Maya looked around the table at the stunned faces of her family members. People who had spent years looking down on her. People who had assumed she was the family charity case. So when you ask me about responsibility, Mom, here's what I want you to understand. I have been responsible. I've been responsible for your mortgage, your car, your food, your vacations, your medical bills, your lifestyle, your ability to sit here tonight and pretend you're successful. She leaned down and placed both hands on the table, looking directly into her mother's eyes. The only thing I haven't been responsible for is protecting your feelings while you've been destroying my reputation. Maya straightened up and looked around the room one more time. Every person in this room has heard her call me lazy, worthless, a failure, a disappointment, and every single word of it was said while she was living entirely off my success. She picked up her purse and started walking toward the door. The mortgage payment for next month is due on the 15th. The Mercedes payment is due on the 20th. The property tax bill comes in 6 weeks. Maya paused at the doorway and turned back to face the table full of shocked relatives and her devastated mother. Good luck figuring out how to pay for it all. I hear responsibility is very important in this family. The front door closed behind her with a soft click, leaving 42 people sitting in complete, horrified silence around a table full of food that Maya had unknowingly paid for, in a house that Maya had unknowingly bought, staring at a woman whose entire life had just crumbled into dust. Her. The aftermath was swift and merciless. Within hours, the story had spread through their entire social circle. Patricia called her sister. David told his wife. Lisa posted a carefully worded Facebook status that didn't mention names, but somehow everyone knew exactly who she was talking about. By the next morning, Maya's mother had become the subject of whispered conversations at every coffee shop, book club, and social gathering in their community. The woman who had spent years positioning herself as the matriarch of a successful family, the mother who knew best, the one who could judge others' life choices, was now revealed as a complete fraud. Worse than a fraud, a parasite who had built her entire identity on the success of the daughter she'd publicly humiliated. The phone call started immediately. Maya's mother spent the next 3 days fielding calls from relatives, neighbors, and friends, all asking the same questions. Is it true? Did Maya really pay for everything? How long has this been going on? How could you say those things about her when she was supporting you? But the worst calls came from her own children. Marcus called first, his voice tight with anger. Mom, I defended you. I spent years backing you up when you trashed Maya. I told my friends she was irresponsible. I told my colleagues she was a failure. Do you have any idea how humiliated I am right now? Jennifer was even more brutal. You made me complicit in this, Mom. Every time I agreed with you about Maya, every time I stayed silent while you humiliated her, I was helping you abuse the person who was literally paying for your existence. I'm disgusted with myself, and I'm disgusted with you. Her father, who had remained mostly silent during years of his wife's Maya bashing, finally spoke up. "Helen, what you did was unforgivable. That girl has been taking care of us for 3 years, and you repaid her by destroying her reputation. I'm ashamed to be married to you." But the cruelest blow came from Maya herself, or rather, from Maya's complete and total silence. Maya had blocked her mother's number, changed her email address, removed her from all social media. When her mother drove to Maya's apartment building, the doorman informed her that Maya had moved and left no forwarding address. The financial reality hit like a tsunami. The mortgage payment for March came due. For the first time in 3 years, Maya's mother had to figure out how to come up with $4,200. She didn't have it. She'd been living so far beyond her means for so long that she'd forgotten what her actual financial situation looked like. She tried to get a loan. The bank laughed at her application. A 70-year-old retired woman with no income, no assets, and no co-signer wanting to borrow $50,000? Not happening. She tried to sell some of her jewelry, the expensive pieces that Maya had unknowingly bought her over the years. The pawn shop offered her $1,200 for items that had cost Maya over $8,000. It wasn't even enough to cover half of one mortgage payment. The Mercedes dealership called about the missed car payment. Then they called again. Then they sent letters. Then they sent a tow truck. Maya's mother stood in her driveway in her bathrobe at 6 in the morning, watching her car get repossessed while her neighbors peeked through their curtains. The same neighbors who had admired her success for years were now watching her fall apart in real time. The foreclosure notice arrived 6 weeks later. Bright yellow paper taped to her front door for everyone to see. The house that had been the symbol of her superiority, the house she'd used as proof that she was better than Maya, was about to be taken away. She tried calling her other children for help. Marcus, the successful lawyer, claimed his money was tied up in investments. Jennifer, the thriving doctor, suddenly discovered that her practice wasn't doing as well as she'd thought. Both of them made it clear that they had lost all respect for their mother and weren't interested in enabling her lifestyle any further. The social invitations stopped coming. The book club didn't call anymore. Her tennis partners found other partners. The charity board quietly asked her to step down from her position, citing changing circumstances. Everyone who had once admired her now knew the truth. She was a fake who had been living off her daughter's success while publicly destroying that same daughter's reputation. Maya's mother found herself alone in a house she couldn't afford, driving a rental car she could barely pay for, wearing clothes she couldn't replace once they wore out. The European cruise she'd booked for next year was canceled. The Japan trip was canceled. The weekly dinners at expensive restaurants stopped happening. But perhaps the most devastating part wasn't the financial ruin. It was the realization that everyone now saw her exactly as she really was, a bitter, jealous woman who had been so threatened by her daughter's success that she tried to tear her down while secretly depending on her. The respect was gone. The admiration was gone. The social status was gone. Even her own children couldn't look at her without disgust. Maya's mother had spent years calling her daughter a failure, not realizing that her daughter's success was the only thing standing between her and complete social and financial collapse. Now, sitting alone in a house she was about to lose, wearing clothes she couldn't afford to replace, she finally understood what failure actually looked like. It looked exactly like her. Maya never contacted her mother again. Not when the house was foreclosed. Not when her mother had to move into a small apartment across town. Not when she heard through the family grapevine that her mother was working part-time at a grocery store at 71 years old, trying to make ends meet. Some people called Maya heartless. They said family should forgive family, that cutting off your own mother was too extreme, that everyone makes mistakes. But Maya had learned something that night at the dinner table. She learned that there's a difference between making a mistake and spending years systematically destroying someone's reputation while living off their success. Her mother hadn't made an error in judgment. She had made a calculated choice to humiliate Maya every chance she got, all while secretly depending on Maya's money to maintain her lifestyle. Maya had given her mother 3 years of financial support and received nothing but public humiliation in return. She had been generous, patient, and forgiving, hoping her mother would eventually recognize her success and treat her with basic respect. Instead, her mother had used Maya's generosity as ammunition to tear her down even further. The truth is, Maya's mother had a choice every single day. She could have been proud of her daughter's accomplishments. She could have supported Maya's unconventional career path. She could have simply stayed quiet instead of broadcasting Maya's supposed failures to everyone who would listen. But she chose cruelty. She chose humiliation. She chose to bite the hand that was literally feeding her. And when Maya finally revealed the truth, her mother didn't apologize. She didn't feel ashamed for taking advantage of her daughter. She felt embarrassed about being exposed. There's a difference. Maya built a multi-million-dollar empire while her mother was calling her worthless. Maya supported an entire family while being labeled a family disappointment. Maya funded her mother's entire lifestyle while being told she was irresponsible. The woman who lost everything that night wasn't the victim. She was the architect of her own destruction. So here's the question I want to leave you with. Maya could have handled this privately. She could have quietly stopped the payments and let her mother figure it out on her own. She could have had a calm conversation behind closed doors. Instead, she chose to expose her mother publicly in front of 42 family members at a dinner Maya had unknowingly paid for. She chose to humiliate her mother the same way her mother had humiliated her for years. Was Maya's revenge justified? Or did she go too far? When someone spends years destroying your reputation while living off your success, do you owe them privacy and dignity when you finally fight back? Let me know what you think in the comments. Would you have done what Maya did, or would you have taken a different approach? And don't forget to subscribe if you want to hear more stories like this one, because unfortunately, Maya's story isn't unique. There are a lot of people out there who mistake kindness for weakness and generosity for stupidity. Sometimes the people who call you a failure are the ones who would fail completely without you.